Good governance is one of those motherhood buzzwords everyone can mouth, like justice, level playing field, inclusive growth. The difference for the Aquino government, for better or for worse, is that the government says good governance, Daang Matuwid, is its centerpiece program that, following and institutionalizing Daang Matuwid, will produce the benefits some governments seem to aim at more directly. Tonight we talk with three officials about how they're pursuing good governance in their areas and the benefits this is producing. I'm Coco Alquaz. This is ANC Presents Philippine Development in Focus. First up, DPWH Secretary Rogelio Singson. He's the poster boy for good governance in an agency that had a reputation for corruption, going by the fact that President Aquino has held him up as an example in all his 4 State of the Nation addresses. PCIJ said he's been able to bring down contract costs by as much as 34%. Secretary Singson, thank you very much for joining us. When you entered, how did you decide to bring down project costs?
I'd like to give it an overview, because it's not just good governance, but the mandate given by President Aquino was good governance and anti-corruption. There was reduced corruption significantly in DPWH. The way we did it, we asked the stakeholders, internal and external, what do you expect from DPWH? And I use the services of a PR firm, who offered pro bono. And they did a survey, and they came up with 3 basic things that we have to do. Use government resources for the right projects, right cost, right quality. As straightforward as that. So we took that on as our management mantra. So our government resources in DPWH going to the right projects, meaning are they aligned to the priorities that we establish, or are they projects selected because of political interventions and so on? Second, right costs. Are we getting the best value for money? Are we bidding them competitively? Is it open? Is it publicly bidded? Do we favor contractors or not? Are our procedures enough so that we reduce collusion? And then the third is the right quality. Are the specifications being followed? So basically, we have put in policies, procedures to do just that.
How did you address the first one, deciding what projects to pursue and trying to remove the politically motivated projects?
As early as 2011, we came up with our program all the way to 2016. We saw that only 77% of our national roads were paved. In other words, you still had some 20 or 30% that were considered national roads, but gravel. So we said, why don't we consider this as our priority? So our priority became improving the quality and safety of our national roads, 32,000 kilometers.
And setting that as your priority, does that allow you to tell people who are lobbying for roads elsewhere that we're not going to focus on that, we're not going to do that?
Precisely. So if it is just a matter of pwede ba dito sa segment na to over this, that's fine, because at the end of 2016, we're supposed to pave anyway 100%. So if it is not within our priority, we will not do it. The second priority was we wanted to make all of our bridges on our national roads permanent. You will not believe it. Ang dami pa nating kahoy na bridges on our national roads, bridges that are just ready to collapse. So, and yet we consider them part of our national road network.
Let me ask you about the first topic, deciding on the projects. I'm sure many secretaries of Public Works and Highways enter the office with that intention. Then the politics gets in the way. How do you say no? I'm sure you're going to say it helps that the president backs you up, but on your own, how do you say no?
I tell them these are the projects that I can only undertake under the regular budget of DPWH. If there are local projects, it's not going to come from us. No, you will have to find some other way of funding them. No.
How long did it take before they got the message and they stopped going to Malacanang?
Well, they've not stopped. Some still go. Some still go. The reality is on ground. Politics will always be there. No. So the first was yung national program, doing the improving the quality and safety of our national roads. And then we came up with convergence projects. No? For example, we kept saying tourism, and yet we've not invested too much in tourism roads. No? So together with the DOT, we came up with a master tourism plan. No? So we started developing some 2,000 kilometers of roads leading to tourism destinations. Now, we're not doing anymore just national roads, because most of the roads leading to tourism destinations are barangay roads, provincial roads. And the classic example was the road leading to the underground river. So, ang kitid-kitid niyan, dalawang tricycle, baka magbanggaan pa riyan, no? They can't go side by side. So, we took over, no? And we said we will do the road according to a national road standard.
On the second topic, how did you break collusion between bidders and even including the government?
The reason for that is that the program of work was not very clear. They used to bid on a generic term, upgrading. In our case, I required detailed program of work before you go to bidding, and you could download that. No? So maliwanag sa mga contractors ano yung scope ng gagawin, ilang kilometro yan, ilang simento kailangan mo, anong klaseng equipment ang kailangan mo. If you don't have that, no, then you have possibilities of the back doing a lot of discretion.
That's Bids and Awards
Bids
Committee.
and Awards Committee, you know. And we reduced that. For example, when we started, they had to submit like 30 or so documents, no, na talagang makakapal. For a bidding, it would take them maybe 1 hour per bidding. Hindi matatapos yan, baka half a day. Because you have to go through each and every document. May missing kang wala doon, ayaw mo kasi mukha nung contractor, i-disqualify mo. No? Hanapan mo lang siya na isang butas. You can. So what we did was reduce it to 5 documents, essential documents. Sabi namin, nasa registry naman lahat yung hinihingi nyo, easy registration. Why do you have to submit it every time you bid? No? So we'd reduce that to 5 to reduce the discretion of the Bids and Awards Committee members.
On the other end, was there a lot of collusion in terms of bidders all agreeing, okay, you win this contract, I'll win that next contract?
Up to now, that's happening. No? And that's my biggest struggle. Now, what happens here is that many contractors, ang ginagawang hanap buhay, yung subcontracting. No? So, we remove that by just removing one requirement of the procurement, which is the certification of credit line certificate from a bank. A contractor, no, can go to a branch manager and say, can you sign off authorizing that if I win this contract, you will lend me 1 billion pesos. No? So because of that, although my net worth is very small, because of that CLC, they call it credit line certificate from a bank, I can go for as much as 1 billion peso contract, no? And then subcontract that. No? So I was told a contractor who just does subcontracting as his business could easily make 5 million a month doing no contract at all.
And knowing that they would be willing to put in throwaway bids for certain projects to allow the designated winner to win.
That's correct. May iba nga tinatawag na sahod contractors, no? They just participate, they get a certain percentage, no, of the winning bidder's share, no. So for example, ang kalakaran dyan, sabi nila, no, 6% of the winning bidder should be set aside, 3% goes to the back members, 3% go to the losing contractors. So yung mga losing contractors, sali lang ng sali, walang kabalak-balak manalo, sa sahod lang yan, no. Sahod contractor can get easily 2 to 3 million a month.
What would it take to end that? Because the problem there is that the bids are not competitive, and therefore your prices, your costs are higher.
Right now, I'm able to monitor all of the biddings nationwide, region, district. So pagka yung isang district talagang pinipinahan yung ABC namin, yung approved budget for the contract, suspesyoso na ako dyan. No? So normally, a competitive bid would end up siguro 5 to 10% from our approved budget. Pero kung consistent, ang masama pa nun, consistent single bidder. No? So pinaghahati-hatian na yon ng mga, as you said, no, among contractors in that area, pinaghahati, ako mananalo dyan. Yung iba hindi sasali pero nominal. So they go as high, halos piso lang nga itira from ABC. No? So yung mga ganon, makikita ko na yon.
Is there a lot of work to be done still in that area?
The thing, what we've been doing is tighten also the performance of contractors in terms of favored contractors. Makikita mo, wala na yung one contractor dominating 6 billion, 7 billion contracts. Wala na nun. No? They're averaging out pretty well. Like I just looked at the data that we had recently. The top 20 contractors, an average of 1.2 billion. No? The next 20, mga 600, 700 million. So well distributed na. No?
In terms of evaluating their performance or how they did their work, in what new techniques or technology are you using to do that?
It used to be that the regional or whoever approves is also the one that accepts and also the one that inspects and also the one that pays. Okay, so walang checks and balances. No? So now what we did, district engineer can approve. It will have to be reviewed at the next level, and we also engaged third party. So hindi ikaw magpapagawa, iba magi-inspect niyan, no? Iba yung may tatanggap niyan, but I leave the prerogative of a third party inspector. So if I receive complaints, I immediately send what we call a quality assurance unit from head office to inspect. No? So they know we can do spot inspections on the quality of the work.
What would you say is your priority in the last 2 years in terms of good governance in the DPWH?
Well, we really want to institutionalize, no? And now we're working on professionalizing the organization. Importante yung manpower. So I said, right project, right cost, right quality. The President added to right on time and right people. No? So far we've asked for an early separation to really make a significant improvement. Average age ng DPWH 55. Okay. Now we've been able to bring it down to some 45. No? We're bringing in and hiring new engineers. Recently, we graduated the first 40 cadet engineers. We recruited them nationwide, honor students, bar top notcher. We're paying them very high, compared to an ordinary engineer. We're paying them 26,000, and we're recruiting our second batch. So for those who are listening, who want to be in the second batch of cadet engineers, you're welcome, but you need to be an honor student and you need to have passed and high grades in your bar exam.
Secretary Thingson, thank you very much. You can watch us via live streaming at www.abscbnnews.com/live. We are taking a short break. When we come back, a look at how the budget department is using IT to fight corruption. ANC Presents Philippine Development in Focus. We'll be right back. If you think DPWH, with the second biggest budget after DepEd, can be a source of either corruption or savings, consider the Department of Budget and Management itself, which is in charge of all appropriations. Before the DAP and PDAF controversies, the department had been saying it is trying to clean up and open up its processes to reduce corruption and get better projects and results. A lot of this is via IT, doing more and more electronically. With us is Undersecretary Bon Moya, a former IT executive who is now in charge of that effort. Bon, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Coco.
What is the biggest change in the budget process for 2014 compared with when the government took over?
The biggest change is not IT. The biggest change is the one that no one has noticed, that we have not submitted a budget that's late. All budget since this administration came in is done with before the year starts, and that allowed for non-repeat budget, and that reduced most of that.
We are learning now during this current controversy about why that is so damaging.
Yes.
How have you been able to get the budgets to Congress on time and get Congress to approve them on time?
Part of it is political. There is a strong reminder from the executive that the budget, for it to be very effective, needs to be done now. And they exert some political muscle to make the budget happen. I think that's a reality. The second one is that we have made the budget very disaggregated. Before, there was just one line that you have to flesh out when the budget execution comes in. So now, prior to submitting it to Congress, we require them to come up with very disaggregated listings that then allow us to do many things. It then allows us to do pre-procurement short of award. That means that we front-load some of the pre-procurement requirements. I think that's one of the changes also that we have allowed. Also, we have introduced to the public and to some congressmen the people's budget. It's a printed, laymanized budget that then allowed us to now highlight, not just in itemized basis, but the aggregates of social spending, economic stimulus spending, and so on and so forth. I think that helped a lot as well.
A lot of this is online now through things like Budget ng Bayan. Alongside that, you have things like data.gov.ph. Have you seen a lot of citizens use those?
Not initially. You know, prior to the PDAF scam, we actually have been publishing all PDAF releases online. Not very many know that, but it's been up there. Initially, the take-up was really low. Eventually, when there was a COA finding, and then there was the controversy about PDAF, then it slowly started to get up. The good part about publishing it earlier than when it happened is that then people knew that we have been publishing all of this beforehand. So they did not think that it was just a reaction to a controversy.
When your government puts many of these things online, what is the philosophy there? You want to get the people to participate. But if they're not doing it yet in the kinds of levels you want them to, how do you encourage them to do that?
To encourage them to do that, DBM actually engaged many civil society. I think the general philosophy is the one similar to the Open Government Partnership, of which the Philippines is a founding member. In the Open Government Partnership, unlike any other international movement, it requires participation of the civil society in the same footing as the government in crafting things. So we learned many things from there, and then that allowed us to be able to deal with the civil society, which we then engaged in the budget process. On the why, I think we from the very beginning, the administration started with the notion that they need to build trust. They need to build trust institutionally, and one of the best way to build that trust is to be transparent, I think. And then that's a core basic element in any relationship, whether it's the governed and the governor, the husband and the wife, the father and the son. Those are basic elements, and we felt that that's an element that needs to be nurtured and developed.
Are you disappointed that not more people are going to those websites, getting that information, and maybe does that make you rethink the strategy or parts of the strategy?
No, if there's only 2 who go to the website, that's 2 more than yesterday. So that's an improvement.
But is it worth your effort if it's only 2?
Of course, it's always worth it. You may not feel the benefit immediately, but it stands for a basic foundation for a more sustainable relationship down the road. First, there's a cultural change. Then there is a government mindset change. Then there's the expectation that this data needs to be up all the time. When you take that out, say a new administration comes in, the administration is not as transparent, for example, then the demand for those information will be there. And therefore, there will be political cost to whoever will take over if these things are taken away from them.
Certainly, these PDAF and DAP controversies are a distraction right now. But by the end, come 2016, how will the budget process look, and how will it be different from the budget process 5 or 6 years before?
Okay, two. First, GAA as a release document. The law now becomes the release document. Prior to that regime, you have to go to DBM and ask for all those SAROs. And we felt, why would we have to issue a SARO when Congress already appropriated it by law? Of course, we wanted to do that because it allows us some degree of control. So for the last 2014, 2015, and 2016, for the most part, your budget is deemed released, January 2. The second one is the performance-informed budget. Before, the question is, did my daughter learn anything from school? The government answer is we provided for 10 teachers, 2 classrooms, and 2 books. And then you ask the question again, did my kid learn anything in school? And the government answer will be, we provided for X number of teachers. See, because that's an output-based budget. This budget 2014, and we're honing it in 2015, is a performance budget. You get this amount of service that we put on record as part of the General Appropriations Act for the money that you pay us. A good example would be the time it takes for you to get your LTO. That's in the General Appropriations Act. The time it takes for you to get your passport. That's in the General Appropriations Act.
Or in your example, test scores of your daughter.
Yes.
So that's
Passing rate. I think in DepEd, there is a performance indicator there of passing rates on national exams.
so that's a lot more work for DBM.
A lot more work for DBM. And it also switches the focus from an output-based budget to an outcome-based budget.
Meaning, did your child learn?
Yes.
Rather than whether we spent money on
Yes.
trying to educate your child.
The bureaucracy is not yet ready. But you see, they will never be ready. So you have to induce those things. And then the cycle then begins. And then the dialogue begins, etc. And Congress is not yet ready. In fact, when we went to Congress last budget season and we had this much level of, I think we had 3 or 4 printed volume. And he said, what's all of these things? All we wanted to check is the line. But we said, this is the new way we're doing budget. And that actually makes their job easier because then they can hold all agencies accountable for all of those performance indicators at the end of the year.
Who are we emulating when we make these changes?
It's a mix of many things. The participatory budget, we learned parts of it from Brazil because they have a municipal. The performance-informed budget, in some countries like Australia and some parts in UK, I think, are performance informed. So we when we go around, we take a look at what other people are doing. We see which ones we can localize, which ones we can implement fairly quickly. So we get samples of those.
A lot of the question when it comes to good governance is how you institutionalize these changes you're making. Can't the next administration just change them again?
The answer is yes, but there are 2 ways to do it. First is to codify it by law. And we're thinking of coming up with a financial act that allows us to define savings properly, than to do this GAA as a release document.
When you said savings, you're referring to the DAP controversy, aren't you?
Yeah. So that then once and for all, there's a legal basis now to define it because now there's a financial act that we can look back to. So we're trying to do our best to have that, put together and hopefully we can send it to Congress. The other one and more important one is that is to embed those works in the day-to-day transaction. For example, in the bank, there's really very little in the bank net that allows you to realize that money deposited in one bank account, you can check in another network and withdraw it. There's no law there. But each and every transaction, you embed a transparency initiative. So we're also trying to build systems that allows us to embed all of this, particularly in the way we spend money. So that even if there's a new administration, that's how you spend money. So when you spend money, you capture the data at source. You embed it at source, you capture it at source, and then you report it as quickly as you can.
So can we say that while the Justice Department files a motion for reconsideration regarding DAP, the DBM or other parts of the government will be working on a financial act that will make this legal in the future, for sure?
We are doing our best to see if there are enough to codify as a financial act.
And if not, would there be just one specific law regarding savings, the definition of savings?
We can always define savings in the General Appropriations Act every year. And in fact, the definition of savings has been there for a while.
Bonmoya, thank you very much for joining us. You can also join our discussion online. Please use the hashtag PHDevelopment or send us a line on our Twitter and Facebook accounts. You can also watch us at www.abscbnews.com/live. We'll take a quick break. Up next, the Commission on Audit and a look at how you can help government officials be honest and efficient. This is ANC Presents, Philippine Development in Focus. The Commission on Audit is one of the agencies that's supposed to catch corruption when officials and the private sector insist on breaking the law. Though it has gotten flack for alleged partisanship in auditing PDAF and DAP, one way it's trying to improve performance is to get the private sector involved. For example, in the 3.5 billion peso Kamanaba flood control project.
This is the Kamanava Flood Control Project, a 3 billion peso DPWH project aimed at mitigating flooding in Caloocan, Malabon, and Navotas. It was approved in 2003 and completed nearly 9 years later, way beyond its 2005 target completion date. In 2012, it underwent a performance audit. But it was no ordinary audit. It was the pilot of the Citizen Participatory Audit, or CPA.
CPA is quite different from social audits that we usually hear from India. Social audit is a parallel audit, an audit done independently by a civil society organization. The model here in the Philippines is very different. It's participatory in nature. That's the reason why we work closely with the Commission on Audit on that.
A group had been formed composed of COA personnel and private citizens to check if the flood control and drainage improvement works were in fact effective.
We have the same powers, we have the same responsibilities with our COA counterparts. It's just so happened that we are from CSOs and we are there as part of our function to secure being stakeholders of the project.
The findings? The project has not completely mitigated flooding due to deficiencies in the structures and design, presence of informal settlers and garbage, and inadequate personnel and communication facilities. While the DPWH project's success was debatable, the success of the CPA pilot was not. Combining the expertise of COA and private citizens, the CPA brought constructive engagement to a whole new level. It was a sort of check and balance on its own.
We want you, as an ordinary citizen, not to ask the question and stop there. We want you to act on the question.
Since its creation in 2012, the CPA has already completed audits for the Kamanava Flood Control Project, Quezon City's Solid Waste Management Program, and Barangay Health Centers of Marikina, while an audit of the government's PPP project for school buildings is now underway.
Citizen monitoring is very important because that's the time wherein citizens, as stakeholders, would be able to know and articulate whether projects identified by government for them are actually being done, or are these projects responsive?
There should be a partnership, a tangible, solid partnership commitment between and amongst those two to make good governance work.
Hopes are high this promising partnership will soon be institutionalized to help pave the way for good governance. Who knows, this just might be a winning formula for increased transparency and greater accountability.
With us now is COA Chairwoman Grace Pulido. Chairwoman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Coco. It's a pleasure to be here.
Is the idea that most government projects, if not all, will have a citizens' participatory audit?
We're not going to do that for every government project. we have a selection criteria, and these are, we want to do participatory audits on projects that have high impact and that are very close to the people, ordinary people's hearts and minds, as in they live with it every day. For example, you saw the Kamanava Flood Control Project, and we did the solid waste management. In other words, yung paghahakot ng basura sa Quezon City, barangay health services in Marikina, the school building program of DepEd, also somewhere. These are all pilots. And the biggest that we've done so far, and this is not on a pilot basis, was the disaster aid audit in the Yolanda-stricken areas.
Is there a way for citizens to help audit or to participate in an audit of projects that are not that have not been identified by you, but for their own reasons they're interested in?
Not at the moment. I have to emphasize that these audits are actually the responsibility and the accountability of the Commission on Audit. These are audits of the Commission on Audit, together with citizen participants. I have to stress that because whenever we do an audit, we have to follow the standards of audit. We are professionally responsible for the audit, and so the audit must be done in a way that we reserve ultimate authority and control over the audit. But I would have to, so sometimes that creates tension with our citizen participants, yes, but we have to make them understand.
Who may not understand.
Yes, but we have to make them understand. Definitely, this is not a parallel audit. This is not going to be an audit where you just want to get some information. Kasi ang nakikita ko talaga na value ng participatory audit na to, dalawa. Unang-una, gusto naming maramdaman ng bawat citizen, whether siya mismo or vicariously, ano ba ang government audit, no? Paano ba ito isinasagawa? Kasi kung minsan, people looking from the outside, ay, ba't naman hindi ginawa ng COA ito? Ay, ganito, ganyan, ganyan. No, it's not that easy because it's a profession, no? Pangalawa, gusto namin ding matutunan ng ma-encourage ang ating mga citizens na huwag nang antayin ang COA na mag-audit. Because right in their own backyards, in their barangays, in their neighborhood na lang, okay? Pag meron silang nakikita na hindi nasasang-ayon sa kanilang expectation with the rudiments of audit that they would have learned from the citizen participatory audit, pwede nilang gawin yon and then call directly on their local governments to do something about it. And if they think that it is something bigger, that a more intensive audit should be made, they can always call on us. But, you know, ang gobyerno, kung minsan kasi nag-aantayan palagi. Parang, there are people that you can point to, hey, do this for us. But with this one, it is empowering citizens, bringing government closer to them, encouraging them to be vigilant at all times, and making them feel that real government power is in their hands.
What did you learn from these 4 or 5 citizens participatory audit pilots that you can roll out in future exercises like that?
For me, that was really the most gratifying part of the experience, is to have discovered, is to have found that the citizens discovered for themselves ano ang parte nila sa gobyerno. The Kamanava project, kanina one of the findings is kaya hindi na-meet kaagad yung target, no? Among other reasons is that because of the presence of informal settlers and garbage. Informal settlers, alam natin yun, mga squatters, no? Garbage, sila rin ang may kagagawa nun. So na-realize nila, ay, hindi naman lahat talaga kasalanan ng gobyerno o nung kung sino mang namamahala. Meron din kaming responsibilidad. And that is like, let's be careful with our surroundings. Let's be good with Mother Earth and all that. Doon sa garbage waste projects sa Quezon City, merong isang magandang realization yung ating mga citizen participants, no? Kasi one of the results of the audit was hindi masyadong nafa-follow yung segregation, no? And what they realized was kasi hindi namin naintindihan talaga kung bakit kailangang mag-segregate. So now that they have understood how important it is, right in their own neighborhoods now, oy, mag-segregate tayo, kailangan natin gawin ito. So, it's, for me, these are the things that not all the money in DBM can buy in terms of pushing empowerment of the people.
Like you said, these projects that will be subject to or have been subject to citizens participatory or audits are the bigger ones, the ones that are very sensitive, that people are very sensitive to. But you audit everything about the government. What has changed about auditing the government 4 years into the Aquino administration? What improvement? What's the most improvement? What's the biggest improvement made?
You know, I don't know if I'm the best person to say anything about that, because before I joined the Commission on Audit, I really didn't know what the Commission on Audit was all about. But I think learning from the support of the people also and the response of the people, parang the Commission on Audit is now so much less timid, so much less quiet. In other words, we are very visible. They see what we are doing, the kind of work that we do, and
These controversies help that, right?
it's not as if we're looking for controversies, but somehow we get in there. And I think what is controversial about the whole thing is not so much the work that we do, but the fact that we don't care, we report them out. Whoever may be involved, we will, and we stand by our work. The focus has always been to work internally within our ranks, so that we can live integrity as a way of life, as an everyday life, to keep our independence as the Commission on Audit, and to be technically proficient in our work and professional at the same time.
Last year, you came out with a special audit on PDAF. It covered the Arroyo years. There hasn't been a similar special audit for the Aquino years. How does that square with your wanting to be seen as nonpartisan?
That is not true at all, and I am going to say this for the nth time. We have audited the PDAF also from 2010 to 2012. In fact, 2013 is ongoing. That is, the results will be coming out in 2014, okay? But what we did not do was a special audit in the mold of the 2007-2009 period. Why? Because we don't want to wait another X number of years before starting an audit. As soon as we found out that things were not going right with PDAF from what we saw in 2007 and 2009, sabi ko, boys and girls, let's go to the 2010, 2011, 2012, and we've been doing that in the course of our regular audit. So hindi totoo na hindi namin in-audit. No? Wala lang kaming isang dokumento na ganyan, pero sa lahat ng mga ahensya na naging implementer ng PDAF sa mga taong ito, 10, 11, 12, no? Makikita ninyo, no, kung ano ang findings namin ng PDAF ng mga taon na yon. But what surprised us, Coco, and siguro I should emphasize this, was in the latter part, 2011, 2012 in particular, we saw less and less of agencies of government being used as implementing agencies, pero dumami sa mga local government units. Pero itong mga local government units naman, sila ngayon na nagta-turn over doon sa mga foundations. Same pattern, very familiar names.
Would it take much of an effort to consolidate that, in effect, into a special audit so that detractors cannot say you're treating it differently?
What we are in process doing now, no, is a consolidated report. Not a consolidated audit. We're done with the audit. We will just consolidate the report so that it will come out in one document. But we want to finish it up to 2013, kasi it was in 2013 that DAP was declared unconstitutional. So we don't expect any more DAP-funded projects in 2014. Kaya patapusin nyo lang ho kami nitong taon na to, 2013, and we will come up with a consolidated report.
You're talking about DAP or PDAF?
PDAF.
When can we expect that consolidated report?
Well, as I said, we expect the reports for 2013 to be out anytime soon. So, siguro towards the end of the year, we will come out with that. And talking about DAP, it's the same thing that we've been doing. We started last year, and we have come out with a lot of findings. They're all there in our website also. And we will come up again with a consolidated report para... Pero alam mo ang problema ko, kagaya dun sa PDAF, no? Isang report lang, nandun sa aming website, and yet there is so much misinformation that's going on, no? Sabihin nila na selective, bakit itong mga senador lang na ito? Hindi po, kasi yung report namin, about 200 of them are named there, and about 82 NGOs are there, kompleto with the names, with the amounts, saan ang proyekto, magkanong ginastos kuno, pero magkano lang yung na-validate. Now, it's all there. It's very siksik in detail. Yeah.
When we come back, we look at the way forward for the good governance agenda. This is ANC Presents Philippine Development in Focus. Welcome back. With us are DPWH Secretary Rogelio Singson, Commission on Audit Chairwoman Grace Pulido-Tan, and Budget Undersecretary Richard Moya. Gentlemen, Ms. Chairwoman, thank you very much for joining us. A lot of the discussion about good governance is about how to institutionalize it, meaning when this government ends, when a new one comes in 2016, how do we ensure that all the hard work that you're supposedly doing stays there? Vince Lasatin of the Transparency and Accountability Network has a question about that.
What have we done in your agencies? What have you done in your agencies, your respective agencies, to create a culture of integrity among your people? To make sure that even if, or not if, but when you are replaced, that the people you leave behind will still fight for the same kind of reforms that you have been fighting for, and that they will resist the temptation to go back or to backslide to where we were 2010 and previous.
Not everyone in the bank have integrity, but the bank functions in a way that there's always an assumed integrity because of the system. That's what we're trying to do in DBM, to codify some of those and build in the proper systems so that whoever sits there are now using the same systems that allow them to be transparent and their transactions to have integrity. So one of those are certain big IT systems that we want to put in that will then facilitate governance and then allow for better transparency and better audit of those numbers.
Chairwoman?
In the commission, there is a structure by which our terms are staggered. So mauna ko, maiiwan si Commissioner Heidi, and then 2 years later si Commissioner Fabia. And the reason for that is precisely for continuity. So there is that inbuilt system. But I think what is the more important thing is that we've been able to harness the power of our own workforce, been able to sell the idea to them that now they feel they own it. And so it's incumbent upon them to really carry through. You know, there are so many gems of a public servant in government service. Kaya lang, because of the culture in the bureaucracy, particularly patronage, kailangan malapit ka sa director mo para ma-promote ka. We did away with all of that. It's got to be a merit-based system. So, ang dami naming nakita na ang gagaling, and we fast-track them. So now they're the ones holding them, at least the mid-level positions, and we've expanded our base. Kung noon, ang hierarchy ng COA, very steep. Ngayon, kanya na. So, mas marami ng nagsasama-sama at nagtutulungan para itong mga bagay na naumpisan namin, which they believe to be worthwhile, ay maipagpapatuloy.
Secretary Singson, what have you done to instill this culture of integrity?
In our case, I was struggling with how to fend off mga nominees and so on. So we came up with competency tests. No? Kung hindi ka makakapasa, hindi ka pwedeng i-promote.
Wala yan noon?
Wala yan. Wala yan. No? So now, for assistant district engineers and above, you have to pass competency tests. You have to pass analytical, yung technical, as well as management. No? That became fairly easy to fend off political nominees. No? Isang tanong lang, nakapasa ba yan o hindi? Kung hindi, kahit sino mag-nominate yan, hindi siya pwedeng i-promote.
As Chairman Palitan has mentioned, they're in DPM, they're in the DPWH, and they're in COA, and they're in many different agencies as well. But unfortunately, what we see is that in the past, because the culture didn't allow for it, they would stay hidden, and they would stay beneath the surface, and they couldn't shine precisely because if they did, they would be set aside and ostracized and put, to the side.
Coco, let me add, no? I did not bring in anyone from outside in DPWH. All were promoted from within. No? So, if I started bringing in someone to fill up vacant positions, then people underneath will be demoralized. Kaya naman pala nag-alis, ganito, ganyan, magpapasok ng sariling tao. Ang ipinasok ko lang yung driver ko at saka security ko. But otherwise, all the undersecretaries, all the assistant regional directors, ASECs, came from within, no? So any retiree, they know there's a vacancy, so they show who is the more qualified. So based on merit and performance, that's how we promote them.
In our audience, we have students of the UP National College of Public Administration and Governance, and Katrina has a question about what students can do in this regard.
As part of the youth sector, my question would be, what do students do to ensure and to monitor that Tuwid na Daan is and will be a reality?
I will tell you something that has nothing to do with audit. I think our focus now should be on our people. Elections are coming very shortly, and whatever gains we may have had, whatever good we have seen to have worked well for us, I think this is the time to engage with the youth, your age, from wherever, nationwide, at ipamalita natin sa kanila, kumbaga itong magandang balita, no? And perhaps work on how we can learn from past mistakes. The focus now should be electoral maturity, as a people, no? Dahil we really get the government that we deserve.
Being also part of the youth. I think the information I have in my mind is that more than half the voters are less than 30 years old. Exercise that vote wisely.
With these PDAF projects, that lawmakers could take a cut from that. We just didn't realize how big a cut they could get. So the question to you is, with the declaration that PDAF is unconstitutional, that it will be stopped, there will be no more source for that kind of skimming?
Why do you ask me the hard questions? Let me first answer that the budget emanates from Congress. They have all the authority and power to tell us how to spend because that's their job, all right? So let me start. Having said that, it's well within their duty to tell us in the executive how they think the national priorities should be, all right? What was declared illegal was a lump sum amount put in the budget that then the congressman will have a discretion after the budget is reenacted. It doesn't prevent them during the budget deliberation to come to the executive and say, I think this one will be better spent this way, and coincidentally that's my district. That's well within the boundaries of the democratic process. When Congress gets the budget, a few hours after the public gets it, the first time we have done it in our history, then they need to do their homework. Part of the answer to the question, what can the youth do? Be discerning and be involved. Discerning, don't let people influence your opinions. You do it based on evidence. And you cannot get evidence if you don't do your homework. So kids should do their homework.
PDAF kasi is a tool for patronage. No? Na meron kang proyekto dito, may proyekto ka dyan. Ngayon tingnan natin, wala ka ng sarili mong proyekto, no? Pero you have the money of the people. Now let us see how, given what the limits of your appropriation will be, what's the best that you can do for your constituencies. So, ang makakagawa nun sa palagay ko, yung isang tao na talagang ang hangarin talaga ay magsilbi sa bayan. That's what I meant.
If you're referring to, are there still local projects in the budget? Yes, there will be. Now, what we did was limit the menu. No? Ito lang ang pwedeng ilagay sa line item. And we limited the amount so that there is meaningful utilization. For example, the propensity is this. They want to do a barangay hall. Bibiyak-biyakin nila ng 3 taon yan para by the time they go for re-election, katatapos ng barangay hall. Ako nagpagawa niyan. In the meantime, on the first year, pinondohan la 1/3 lang. COA comes to us. Sabihin, how come you declared 100% completion eh hindi pa tapos? Eh ang binigay sa aking pera 1/3 lang. Tapos ko yung 1/3 pero hindi functioning yung building. No? So yung ganun sistema, wala na yung chop-chop na yan.
The original question, Secretary, was how can students or other organizations participate in some kind of audit, especially, I guess, in your department, which has the most visible projects.
Yes, we accredit NGOs and church organizations. They require manpower. They require inspectors. We've been challenging them, talk to your nearest College of Engineering. Those engineering students can go on summer break or they can go on practicum. No? Sumukat sila ng mga kalye. No? Sumukat sila kung tamang thickness niyan, kung tama ba yung mix ng semento. We're even willing to tie up with those College of Engineering schools so that we can teach them how to inspect. Because eventually, they might also want to join the department.
Dion Romano, of the People Power Volunteers for Reform, has a question for Yusek Moya.
Since the Aquino administration has really been working on programs for transparency, hence the creation of open data, sir, I just want to know what are the present gains of the open data and what are the particular spaces for engagement where the civil society organization can work? Or is this open data something which is one way, or is it something interactive?
Well, open data, in our appreciation of it, is part of a total ecosystem of transparency. So that's one component. That's supply-driven. That means that any data that we can get our hands on, we publish. What are the benefits? Today, you can go there and get each and every Bureau of Customs item that has been shipped out the last month. And every month that's updated. At least that's the endeavor. All awarded contracts 1 week ago are posted in the open data portal. All prices as checked last week, I think, is there. So you can make it more meaningful by doing 2 things. First, you go there, download it, it's in a downloadable, machine-readable format, meaning you use your Excel, you parse it, you pivot it, you do whatever you want, you publish your results. You publish it in your social network, you publish it in school. That will help. Second, we have built it in such a way that you can build apps for phones. Much the same way as we had our budget hackathon, they built an app that tells you who gets what at what region, built by the private sector. If they make money off it, that's fine and well. If not, they can give it as a public service. So those things you can do, look at the data. Will the data be enough? No. So the other part is to keep asking for relevant, meaningful data.
Michelle Felione has a question about Freedom of Information Bill.
As transparency is one of the pillars of good governance and is also highlighted in the PDP, do you see the passage of the Freedom of Information Bill before the Pinoy administration ends?
I should add to that, we were talking about this earlier, that the President said yes. The question, I guess, for them is, do you believe that? Or was that just for public consumption?
I have very limited interaction with the President, but my impression of the President is that he does not say things he does not mean to do.
Sa amin, kay may FOI o wala, meron na talaga kaming policy of public disclosure. But really, it's the baliktad that's mahirap. Sa amin na lang, we have a law that mandates all government agencies to give us access to their files and to their records. Meron na batas na yan, ha? Meron pang sanction pag hindi sila mag-comply. They still don't.
Yusek Moya said he has little access to the President. You obviously have a lot of access. Do you think it's a real priority?
Well,
for
definitely, no. Marami na sa aming nagtutulak, no. And I guess
so tinutulak niyo siya
to siya para i-push na nga yung FOI because as far as I'm concerned, it's all there already. We've made it available, no. downloadable na nga lahat yung forms namin. No? So, ang critical kasi dito yung I think he had some concerns about may mga information ba, to what extent can we give, no? And baka naman wala na kaming ginawa kundi sumagot lahat din sa mga hingi ng information. Sa amin lang, hingian kami ng list of projects. Sometimes people come to us and ask for ridiculous information, no? But we're required, no, to provide. Now, on the other side, may mga nagsasabi naman, pwede ba bawas-bawasan yung information available dahil pati yung NPA, alam na nila kung magkano yung nakuha namin ditong project. So, they ask 3% on our project. Sabi, kung magbibigay kami dito, babalikan pa kami. O, meron pa pala kayong ibang project dito sa probinsyang ito. No? So, there's one side of it saying, pwede ba bawas-bawasan nyo naman na yung mga information na made available on the website. No?
Vince, you've been pushing for freedom of information for a long time. I think we'll end the program here. When the president said that, did you believe him?
To that I say, I will believe it when I see it.
Thank you very much. Secretary Singson, Chairwoman Grace Pulidutan, and Undersecretary Moya, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for our guests in the studio, and thank you for joining us. Join us again next week after the President's State of the Nation address. Good night.